What's up everyone, welcome back to another episode of Project Honda Civic SI. As the title suggests, I've gotten more wheels for the Civic. It's a bit of a story and I'll jump into it and explain as I go along. But let's take a look at what I got. Okay, so if you watch the old videos, you know these are my daily wheels. They're a set of TSW Venom wheels, 17x8 with a plus 40 offset, and they're the wheels I use to drive to and from the track, basically. I got these wheels for $100, if you do recall, but I think it's time to do an upgrade. So here's what I picked up recently. Now these bad boys are a set of Work-Emotion 11Rs. Yes, I got works for Project Civic. These are some real JDM wheels. And these wheels are 17x8 with a plus 35 offset. And I managed to pick these guys up with tires for $200. There's a bit of a caveat to that. First, it was a homie hookup. This came from, these wheels came from a good friend of mine who no longer needed them for his Honda, so he knew I was in need and sent them my way for just $200. Second caveat is there were only 3 of them, not a complete set because the 4th one got damaged in an accident. Still, the other 3 are in good shape, and pending what we're going to do next, I'm going to pick up a 4th wheel and then use them. So, let's do some test fitting. So long-time viewers of the project will recall that with these C43 big brakes, wheel fitment is pretty tricky for the 8th Gen Civic platform, just because these calipers are so wide that most spokes end up fouling. The rotors are only 309 millimeters in diameter, so a 17-inch wheel is fine, but getting spokes that clear these calipers is pretty tough, so hopefully these works fit. Sick. Plenty of clearance, tons of clearance in fact. That's like almost an inch of clearance. That's why I guess this is why you buy nice JDM wheels, because they're made to clear big brakes like this. Look at that, that's sick. So these works fit up front, which is awesome in case I ever need to run a 17x8 wheel up front. Though if you recall, I've already been running a 17x8 wheel set on this car. So what's the deal with these? Well, we have to go back. If you recall, I was running 17x8 plus 32 Wedssport TC105Ns in the front and 17x8 with a plus 35 offset Enkei RPF1s in the back. And I thought to myself, well, now's the time to do a front wheel drive staggered setup, you know, where you run the wider wheels in the front, narrow wheels in the back. I found a good deal on a pair of Enkei RPF1s in a 17x9 size through a good friend. Unfortunately, they fit on his car, which had very blown out fenders, which mine are not. But unfortunately, when I put them on my car, they had a plus 22 offset. And not only did they just clear the calipers by literally a millimeter, but when push comes to shove and I lowered the car down, the fender was basically sitting on the tire. That's kind of the problem with Enkei RPF1s, is that they're a great wheel, very lightweight, inexpensive, easy to get, but their wheel clearance, especially in 17x9 fitment, is pretty terrible. Enkei will even admit that if you ask them. So unfortunately I had to sell those. I found it really tough to sell just a pair of wheels, unsurprisingly. So I ended up listing the full set, the 17x8 rears as well as the 17x9 fronts, and I actually ended up making money, a profit off of it, just because if you recall I got those 17x8 rear wheels for just so incredibly cheap. But that also meant I no longer had a rear wheel fitment, hence the need to buy these works from my friend Matt. What about the Wedsports? Well, I still have them, they're actually right behind the camera. But I figured now's the time to upgrade, because truth be told, the 17x8 wheel set was a temporary thing because I got the wheels for so cheap, I figured I'd give it a shot. So that meant it was time to go back on the hunt for new front wheels, and I was pretty set on finding a 17x9 wheel, but finding 17x9 wheels that clear BBK is a bit tough, so I ended up talking to representatives at Wedssport and Enkei and a few other brands, and I ultimately settled on an unconventional choice. A lot of popular track day wheels you may be thinking of actually aren't super good for fender clearance on the 8th Gen Civic just because the stock bodywork is so narrow. So finding a wheel that clears the BBK and clears the bodywork is pretty tough. Ultimately, Enkei came back with several options that were actually in stock and ready to go as soon as I called, and I ended up with these. Yes, I actually bought new wheels for once. Check it out. This is an Enkei Kojin. It's part of Enkei's tuning wheel lineup. It's a relatively new wheel to their database of lightweight wheels. It's made using the same MAT rotary forging technology used on the RPF1, though unfortunately these are a bit heavier. They weigh in right around 18 pounds. The final spec on these guys is 17 inches in diameter, 9 inches wide, with a plus 35 offset. Now, talking to Enkei, they said these wheels should clear the BBK, at least on paper. So fingers crossed, because I already paid for these things. Let's hope they clear. Oh, look at that, we're clearing by a mile. That's like tons of space. I mean, that's almost an inch of BBK clearance. That's really great. So with the 17x9 plus 35 wheel, I went with a 35 offset, kind of middle of the road for an 8th Gen Civic. If you actually look straight down, you'll see it's actually pretty close to the fender. Unfortunately, it's also really close to the strut. There's like maybe 5 millimeters between the actual wheel and the strut. So hopefully once a tire's on here, it still clears. It should, fingers crossed. I actually like the way this looks. Classic 5-spoke design. Sorry if the sunlight's kind of blowing out, the sun's kind of just peeking around the corner of the garage there. But these 17x9s are cool because they're actually semi-concave. They're the only 17-inch fitment that is semi-concave with this wheel. They actually look great. Let me try and adjust the light and compensate for how rough the sun is. So you can see they're semi-concave in nature. And I mean, just look at that brake clearance. That's almost an inch of clearance. That's actually incredible for any wheel, let alone an inexpensive cast wheel that you can just go buy anywhere. Alright, so I'm back from the tire shop and it's finally time to test fit my new track wheels on Project Honda Civic Si. Now, there's a bit of a last minute change up. I know I picked up those really nice 11R Work-O-Motion wheels, but I decided I want to use those on the street instead. And so at the last minute, my buddy Mikey at TPM Parts hooked it up with a brand new pair of Wedsports. These are the same Wedssport TC105Ns I was running on the front of the car previously with a different offset. These are a higher offset plus 38 wheel. That way, the higher offset brings the wheel more inboard, allowing it to clear the rear fenders and not rub. So these are the new rear wheels. They're 17x8 with a plus 38 offset. And I'd like to go for a slightly narrower rear tire in hopes of improving rotation on the car. This is a 215/45/17. Though, for those of you in the track day scene, you'll know the Nexen runs super wide to size. So although this is stated as a 215, it's closer to about a 225, 235 actual size. So even on an 8-inch wheel, it's totally even. There's no stretch because the tire is that wide. So this is the rear setup, 17x8 plus 38 with a 215 tire. This is the new front setup. Here are the Enkeis. Again, Enkei Kojin, 17x9 plus 35, tons of BBK clearance. And I decided to go with a 245/40 front tire. Again, the Nexen Serve 4G. And again, these tires run super wide to size. So even on a 17x9, the 245 isn't even stretched at all. It's actually very slightly bulged because this tire runs so wide to size. Now, that's awesome for grip, but hopefully I don't rub on the fender or on the strut. So let's see now how this actually fits in the wheel well. So again, tons of BBK clearance here. And I'm hoping with the plus 35 offset, it should clear the fender. Hopefully with a minor fender roll. I'm really only worried about clearing the strut now, just because these tires are so incredibly wide. So let's see what we got here. All right, let's check our inside clearance. So with wheel fitment, you have two things to worry about. You have your inside clearance and your outside clearance. So your inside clearance is going to be your suspension on most cars, especially with a strut front end. And the outside clearance is always going to be your fender and your bumper, things like that. So let's see how we're doing on the inside. It's going to be pretty close. And if you look up there, you'll see that the 245 tire is clearing the strut only just by a few millimeters. See, I was afraid that if I went with a 255 front tire up front, I'd actually be sitting on the strut. So that gives us just enough breathing room to clear the strut, which is great. Now, let's lower the car to the ground and see how we're doing on fender clearance. All right, everyone, moment of truth. I'm gonna lower the car down. I confirm that the tire does in fact clear the strut, which is great. Now we can make sure that we clear the fender and the bumper attachment point, because that's where we're most likely to rub with this setup. I think we're good. Okay, so I just threw on the rear wheel fitment, and I have to say, quick note before I lower the car down, this is what I love about these Wedsports. In addition to the TC105N just looking really cool, they're extremely light. I mean, just picking these things up, it's so much easier to mount these things on the hubs than it is those Enkeis. For example, those Enkeis are about 19 pounds, I believe, and these guys, I believe, are under 15 pounds each. So, I mean, just picking them up, putting them on the car is a notable difference, like, what, 25% difference in weight? I'll be sure to check that in the edit. But yeah, let's lower this guy to the ground and see what we got in terms of fitment. Now this fitment should be fine. I was previously running a RPF1 in the back with a 17x8 plus 35, so 3 millimeters more poke with a 225, and I was rubbing. So hopefully with 3 millimeters more inboard and a 215 rear tire, it should clear just fine. Yeah, not tons of space, but there's enough. Sweet. All right, so this is the front fitment, 17x9 plus 35 with a 245/40 tire, and it looks like we are actually clearing the fender, if only just. It is pretty tight. We might get some rub on full compression. Most likely going to be against the fender liner here, which has already taken quite a beating previously, and maybe against the edge of the bumper right here. But as far as the actual fender itself, it looks like with a very minor roll, we should clear this just fine. Now, this is why I went with the 245 instead of 255, just because with my current setup, I don't have a camber plate or anything like that. It's just struts with lowering springs and camber bolts in the strut knuckle. You know, there's just not enough adjustment to really give this car tons of camber and really stiff springs to really allow for maximum wheel and tire fitment. But for the time being, this is great. So sorry the video cut off, but here is the final fitment on Project Civic Si. I think the fitment of the car looks amazing on these wheels. Here are a few different shots at different angles. The car does not rub, at least on the street, though we will see how it works on track. So to that end, stay tuned for the next episode of Project Honda Civic Si, where I return to the track with a new setup and see just how fast we can go with the stock power Honda Civic. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. See you next time.